Welcome, guys, back to ILWPOD. I'm your host, as always, Justin Wright. Today, we are welcomed with the gentleman barbarian, Mr. Bruss Hamilton. How's it going, man?
Hey, it's going good. Happy to be here. Thanks for bringing me on.
I just want to point out before we get started, you have great facial hair.
Oh,
Something that
yeah.
captivated me immediately. The mustache is just something I was like, I got to get him on. He looks presentable.
I appreciate that. Yeah, actually, a long time ago, back before pro wrestling, I had a beard that was probably down to my mid chest. It was not presentable. It was crazy, but I have to have the gentleman aspect of the barbarian, so I had to clean it up a little bit.
Like it. It definitely enhances the look. Um, Before we get into the meat and potatoes, so to speak, are there any social medias that you'd like to plug and get that stuff out of the way?
I tell everybody, on X, Facebook, Instagram, it's all the same. It's either Bruss Hamilton or Bruss Hamilton Pro. Just give me a follow, and I'm posted almost every day, every other day on there.
Sounds good. Easy, I like it. Um, I always start at the same place with every podcast. This is the I Love Wrestling podcast. As wrestlers, wrestling fans, we all fell in love at some point in time. When did Bruss find or fall in love with professional wrestling?
So I actually didn't. I found wrestling forever ago, and I've answered this a couple times because it kind of comes as a shock to people, especially since I'm on the independent scene. That I was not a fan of wrestling. I watched it as a kid, really young, Attitude Era. I could tell you about Stone Cold, The Rock, and Undertaker, Kane, and that was basically all I knew. So I didn't really watch too much. So I didn't really fall in love with it and become like a true fan until I was training. And I realized what it took because I got into pro wrestling as a financial decision to try to make money using my body and my physical abilities that I've been weightlifting for over 16 years and trying to make money with that somehow. And I thought pro wrestling was a good avenue before I knew anything about it.
Okay.
And then got into training and just fell in love with it there.
All right. Um, with that, I was going to bring up your weightlifting. You've won competitions. How did you get into that field? Like, is it something that you grew up and you was working out all the time, or is it something you found later?
No, in school, I was a band nerd and a drama kid. I
Okay.
played tuba. Not very athletic at all, and still am not really athletic. It just turns out that I'm strong. I enlisted in the Marine Corps. And when we were in boot camp, even though I wasn't like very physically gifted, or at least I felt I wasn't physically gifted and I didn't really train or anything, I was still in like not ahead of everyone, but ahead of most. And I was still not stronger than everyone, but stronger than most. And this is me being just some video game kid partier. I was a bad kid, so I made a lot of poor choices. My body was still able to perform like that. And then when we got out of boot camp, out of combat school, and I went to my first like a real schoolhouse for my MOS, that's where we had a lot of downtime, a lot of gym time. So I went to the gym just to see what I could do, and I just started lifting. And I was just kind of, other than like the avid gym goers, guys that have been going, play, did sports in high school and everything. Other than those guys who've been training, for 5, 6 years. Um, I was stronger than everybody just kind of walking in. And so I thought, hey, there might be something to this. And I just kind of kept pursuing it. And then I got stationed in Havelock, North Carolina at Marine Corps Air Station Cherry Point. And 30 minutes away was a town called New Bern. And they had this Gold's Gym with like this giant cage outside of it, just this chain link area, roof and walls. And it had all these big rocks and tires and crazy things to lift. And there was like a strongman community in that gym. And so I joined it and tried to see what I could do and just fell in love with that sport and never looked back.
So, how many, if you had to guess, how many competitions have you competed in?
Oh, it's not that many. These competitions you have to, if you take it seriously, the way that I did, trying to get ahead as quickly as I possibly could. You have to peak your body for the competitions because I didn't get into the sport with a strong enough foundation to just be contest ready whenever
Hmm.
until I was like 6 years into it. But I couldn't tell you the number. Um,
Fair
because
enough.
there were some years where I would have like 10 of them. There were some years where I would do like four. It was just random like
And
that.
you did that for 16 years?
No, weightlifting for
Okay.
16 now this year. But strongman, I started way back then in like 2011, 2012 time frame, and I ended up getting a really bad lower abdominal and back injury, and that kind of knocked me out for like 4 or 5 years. And then I tried it again here in Indiana with a much more serious approach in the fall of I want to say 2018, and then
Okay.
that's when I started taking the sport really serious and going.
How many competitions have you won?
One, oh, quite a
A
few.
few.
Most of the time, I didn't, I've been, and when I won my major titles, that was in the under 265 pound class. But I used to compete because I didn't like weight classes. I just wanted to be the strongest man. And
Okay.
so I would compete super heavyweight. And like, so I won the Indiana strongest man one year overall. And then most of my other wins are all in the under 265 pound class. I've had a nationals appearance as a super heavyweight, and I was doing really well at nationals in the under 265 before I had a leg injury on day two. Um, and then there's of course, the one that I use for the wrestling gimmick is I was the world strength games champion, 2023 under 265 pounds.
I just noticed you highlighted a couple, and in that amount of time, um, and I've went and watched some of them. It seems like you did put in the work and you won a lot, and were very adamant about succeeding in that. So, like,
Yeah.
what shifted to where you wanted to wrestle?
When I won the world strength games, and then the whole environment in the under 265 pound class, so I'm 33 years old when I win the world title. I'm competing against a bunch of guys in their 20s. I'm competing
Mhm.
against a bunch of guys that don't, there are a few here and there that are like approaching 30 or a little over 30. There were a few here and there that were married with kids, but I'm married with 6 kids. I'm working 12-hour shifts, and I'm going to a gym 45 minutes from my house in one way. So, like, I'm gone all the time. I sacrificed, and my family sacrificed a ton for me to be successful in that sport. And there was no reward for it. There was no money in it. There was, it was great. I won a world title, but um, outside of the sport, and even to some inside the sport, it just didn't matter. So it matters to me. It matters to my family. And so when I won that title, and I got a pro card with the word professional spelled wrong and a pat on the back, I was like, okay, I think I'm going to be done now. And that's when I started looking, what can I've spent all this time building my body into what it is. What can I do to make all that time and effort worthwhile? And that's when I started looking into professional wrestling and thought maybe that would be a possibility.
And upon looking, like, what brought you to find a training school? And I guess was your original training school, was that with Black and Brave, or did you start somewhere else?
No, I started at Black and Brave. Yeah.
Okay.
So I wanted to, again, it's just like you said, you watch my videos of me working out and stuff, right? And
Yeah.
doing my competitions, and I have a very serious approach. And so I have to reiterate again, I'm married and I have 6 children. I am a family man. I have a 9-acre homestead. I have a lot of things going on at home. And if I'm going to choose to do something that takes me away from them, then I owe it to them to put 100% of my effort into it. And that means that I have to go find a school that I think is worth my time, that I think I'm going to get the most out of, that I agree with the structure so I can find the most success. And that was Black and Brave. And again, and that started with a simple Google search. And really, there weren't a lot of schools at the time. This was 2021, I think, when I started looking,
Okay.
because it was a 2-year waiting list. I was like, there was really no schools. in my area in the Midwest. And so I told my wife, I was like, if we're going to do this, I'm probably going to have to go far away from the house. And I was like, and I don't think I'm going to be able to drive back and forth every time. So Black and Brave had housing where I could live in Iowa, in Davenport, for the 3 months that I was there.
Okay.
And then we would have every other weekend off. So I would drive home those weekends and be with my family for a day or two and then head back to, on Sundays we had to clean the gym.
So after Black and Brave, did you pursue any further training or did you
Yeah.
just hit the ground running?
No, well, both.
Okay.
Simultaneous, right? So I immediately started getting bookings anywhere I could, and wrestling anywhere that I could. And then I paid for one of those one-on-one consultations with Gabe Sapolsky
Okay.
and asked him what I could be doing. Did he have any outreach in the Indiana area of people I could get with? And he set me up with a gentleman named Jake Oman down at White River Training in Indianapolis, and he's got a great program down there. And while my schedule didn't necessarily allow me to join his classes, he was willing for me to go and do one on one. And he taught me a lot of the advanced stuff. Where Black and Brave is fantastic for fundamentals, basic psychology. Basically, you can, I'm an example of that. I can go into the school not knowing a thing of wrestling at all. And I can walk out and I can give you a 5 minute basic match. Won't be the world's greatest match, but it will be a match.
Yeah.
And then I went to Jake Oman for a few months there. I would go like once a week or once every other week. At some points, I was going twice a week, and I would get with him, and he really fine tuned and helped me detail what Bruss Hamilton was and how to be that gentleman barbarian and everything. So there was some training there, and then I'm never going to say no to a school if there's an opportunity to learn something new. Freelance Wrestling Academy is one that I'm looking to try to get into a couple classes just to get in there and I went to one of their shows and it was like nothing I'd seen yet. And so I went, oh, I want to learn how they do what they do. And so, I'm always willing to learn more.
Definitely. There's a segment on here where I run down a bunch of, not a bunch, but like five or six promotions you've worked for. I'm gonna
Sure.
ask you a question brought up by a friend of the channel, a friend of yours. Mr. Brandon Beretta, wants to know how much Fairlife chocolate milk do you intake in one day?
Yeah, that's Brandon's favorite question. But you know what? He's right because I do love talking about it because I'm a big nutrition guy. I actually switched off the chocolate milk to fat free now. However, my daily intake of milk in general is I drink a gallon of milk a day.
So a whole gallon.
1 gallon of milk every day. Yep.
Okay.
And I do Fairlife because it's I'm not lactose intolerant by any means, but when you drink a gallon of milk, yes, you are. There's just not your body just starts to, react to that. And it adjusts it adjusts after a few days, but it's just too much to worry about, and you can gas out the whole room. So you know what, my wife doesn't appreciate that. So I went to Fairlife because it's lactose free, and 1/2 gallon of Fairlife has 76 grams of protein in it. And
Okay.
so I can get half of I eat 300 grams of protein a day. And so when I drink a gallon of milk, that's half of my day is just done.
Okay. So it just makes it easy. It gets that
Yeah.
chunk out of the way. Okay.
Yep.
I like that. Um, Now I'll do this promotion rundown, as I like to call it. I'm going to start with where I found you, where I became acquainted with you. Just give us a little brief phrase or sentence or whatever about it. Chicago style wrestling.
Uh, Fantastic production.
Okay.
You looking, is that short? Do you want longer?
That's good. That's good.
I've got a lot to say about all of them. Yeah.
We might dive into that one a little bit more here in a
Okay.
minute. But yeah, we'll go with that's fine for now. SCW Pro.
Home promotion where I started.
Okay. AAW.
Well, that's Danny Daniels, right? That's the guy who trained my trainers, and
Okay.
that's the big time show that's on the upswing.
Okay. OVW.
Oh, fantastic place to learn. Obviously, a lot of history there.
Did you get to work there with Al Snow?
I did. Yeah, he runs the whole show. Nothing happens there without him putting his thumb on it.
Before I get to the last place I'm going to ask you about, is there any advice that you got from Al that stuck out in particular?
I, there was never one thing, that sticks out because it all stuck out. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Al has obviously with his record has a great mind for wrestling, and he has a great way of teaching you how he thinks about it to where it's retained. Him and Doug Basham both. I spent a lot more time with Doug than I did Al. However, both of their and Al, still Al as well. Their words left lasting impression.
Okay. Last on the list, so to speak, is Pro Wrestling Revolver.
Oh, the really really good production. Sammy Callahan knows how to run a show. Fantastic.
I found it really interesting when I saw you work there. I've actually had the opportunity to have Jake Christ on here. Great guy. And
Mm-hmm.
I talked to him for like an hour and 40 minutes on here. And I didn't even get to touch really on what he did, what he's done in Revolver. And that's probably some of his best work is what he's done in Revolver. So Revolver is somewhere that I'm very interested in. Um, is there, looking into the future, is that somewhere where you plan to do a lot more work at?
As long as they have me, Sammy keeps telling me to come back, and he may not always have a match for me, but I'll be there to help their program for sure.
And that's in the like Dayton, Ohio area, correct?
They travel. I know that they go to Des Moines, Iowa. They do Dayton, Ohio. They have a show in Indianapolis the day before the Rumble, January 31st.
Okay.
And I that show that I first did with them was in Indiana. I can't remember the town's name, but they really travel the Midwest, really.
Okay. So is that something that makes it easier for you, especially like with family life and stuff like that? Give or
Oh,
take?
there's nothing easy about this for the family. Like this week, I leave Friday morning. I won't be home until Sunday night.
Okay.
That's just that's just
Fair enough.
the way this goes.
Yeah, it's something I'm learning. I'm still new to the podcast game, and it's something even doing this that I learned. It makes it hard. Um,
Yeah.
how has your family, responded to you having to travel so much and focus on wrestling?
They've all taken it really well, and I think that's because mostly, we got slowly put into me being gone like this with Strongman. Like I said, I'd work a 12-hour shift, and I'd drive to a gym 45 minutes from my house. So they would wake up, and I wasn't here. They would go to bed, and I wouldn't be home till 2 hours after they went to bed because of work in the gym. So I may not have had a competition every week, like I have a show every week, but I was training 4 times a week like that. So everyone just kind of got used to it. They understand that this is a selfish desire. This is something I'm doing for me, and I've asked them to take on the burden, and they have been more than willing to do it because I really do have full support. Everyone thinks that it's just like in Strongman, the support has come into wrestling where they think I can make it. They think I can get signed with any of the major companies, and then that's the goal, right? So that it makes it easy when they all think I can actually do it.
That's badass. I know personally speaking, a supportive family goes a long way
Yeah.
in pursuing any dream. So it's great that they've had your back throughout Strongman, and now they have your back in professional wrestling. Um, a little bit about CSW, like when did you get started with them? And what would you say your goals are within that promotion?
So CSW is one of the first shows that I started again. Like I graduated from Black and Brave in March of 2024, and I think I started going to their shows in April or May. Like just whenever I graduated, they were one of the first ones I started going to do ring crew, set up, tear down, get into the Future Royal to get a rep in and learn how other people work and how to communicate in the ring. Um, So they were definitely one of the first. And Hades, you know, there's a few Black and Brave guys on that show, and so they were very encouraging to me to get me there. I can never say enough good about these boys from Black and Brave because they've really helped me on every step of the road I've had so far. Um, and CSW being the first one where they really like were like, hey, this kid's taking it seriously. Like, let's try to help him out. And then, Hades, I think he took notice of me in the first the first Futures Royal, and then had a couple of different ideas for me. And we went back and forth. Some dates didn't work out with another guy because I was going to be in a tag team, and that didn't formulate. So while we were waiting for that tag team to happen, he put me just like in a scramble, and he's like, "Hey, let's just get you on the show and let's see how this goes." And I think that I had such a reaction from the crowd in the scramble that he scratched the tag team and just made me a solo. And my goals within the company, I think my goal within every company I'm in is to try and get their big title.
Okay.
I'm looking to win all the major titles, and keep advancing myself in the promotion.
So, like right now, for instance, the CSW World Champion is Conan Lycan, another former Black and Brave. Would you be like, would that be something you'd like to see? Like you two big bulls lock horns?
I would love to wrestle Conan Lycan, and I'm willing to say that he'd love to wrestle me. Just because on the outside of the scene, I'm not much for kayfabe. I like to say that like we're actors, and in the ring you're going to get the show. Outside of the ring, I'm not. That's not who I am. I want to be able to talk freely, so I'll just be open about it. He's been a big mentor for me too. He's someone that I talk to weekly, every other week or so. We talk about lifting, decisions within each other's careers and family life and everything. His family's also super important to him. And I know just from a personal standpoint that at any point I can get in the ring with him would mean a lot to me.
Okay. Something newer that you've been able to be a part of is, leading into a big program in WWE between CM Punk and Drew McIntyre. There was that segment on Raw where they're inside that Hell in a Cell. You got to be a part of that in, security capacity. What did that moment mean for you? Like being able to be on WWE TV, and how did that come about?
Again, that all comes from Gabe Sapolsky. He's kind of the extra guy. Well, he wears a lot of hats now. At the time, he was kind of just running the extras, but now he's got a whole lot on his plate. And a lot of kudos and shout out to Gabe because he's been a big help to me too on the indies. Um, he, he brings on all the extras, and if you're trustworthy and reliable, he'll keep bringing you on. So I've done extra work quite a few. So I did that cage segment. I caught Braun Strowman. I caught Bronson Reed. It's
Yeah.
like I've got to do a few things with the extra work, and that just comes about with like helping out. And if you're somebody that's close by and he wants to book you, then you get booked on there and you show up, shut up, do as you're told.
Okay. Fair enough. Before we get going, just a few more questions, a couple maybe. Um,
Yeah, sure, we got a little time.
One, I want to ask, you are 8 months in, 8, 9 months in. What would you say, like it being the beginning of the year, what would your like biggest goals be for just the year of 2025? Like at the end of the year, what do you want to look back and be like, I did that?
Get established. 2024 was the year of the debut. I went to every promotion I could, and I debuted on as many of them that would allow me, and then retained positions in most of them. And so now I would like to take that where I can now they can run a story with me. They can establish something with me, and I can become a staple within all the promotions that I'm with because I say I'm in it for the money and everything. I say it's a business decision, but I'm also like a dog, like loyalty wise. And anyone that's given me that shot, that's decided that I was worth their money and worth their time and worth their effort. Now I would like to reward those promotions and say, hey, let's go put on a damn good show. Let's go out there and let me give you my best, whether there's 3 people or 700 people. Let's just go out there and try to make this company the best it can be, and I want to be a part of that. So that if at the end of 2025 I can look back and know that no matter where I'm at, like if I've advanced further, some magic reason it all happens that fast for me, which would be fantastic. Or if I'm exactly where I'm at right now, either way is fine as long as that by the end of 2025, I can look back and know that I have brought some sort of improvement to whatever promotion I'm on. And all these promotions are great. So I know it's going to be tough to improve them because they're already really good. There's already really good talent there. And that just means that I've got to bring that next level effort that I know I can bring to try and raise it up.
Okay. Um, Something that is relatively new in the news cycle is the WWE ID system.
Mhm.
Is that something, as a former student, once again, of Black and Brave, that is one of them training schools? Is that something that you pay attention to that might maybe potentially help you get to a bigger stage quicker?
I mean, of course, I'm going to pay attention to it. It's
Yeah.
there's all you never say never. I don't know with me being as new as I am if Gabe would ever look at me for that yet.
Okay.
Maybe after 2 or something years, but I'm not going to say no because,
Yeah.
like I said, I know my work ethic. I think it speaks. I think that my reputation that I've established in 2024, appearing all the places that I've appeared this quickly, in my career, I think speaks to my work ethic and how hard I'm willing to try and grind. And like I tell people, like I've met wrestlers that have been wrestling longer than me. Now, and this isn't me like talking bad about them because it's all about different drives or anything. So I don't want anyone to hear this and take it negatively. But I sleep in my car. I can't. I'm green. I get green guy pay, right? So like I get I sleep in my car. I'm just now getting bookings this year where people are going to get me a hotel or something like that, but those are few and far between. And so like there are a lot of people that aren't willing to go the lengths that I'm going. Even with me, I say, oh, I drink a gallon of milk. I eat 300 grams of protein a day. Sometimes on Saturdays, Fridays and Saturdays, I may get like maybe 120 grams of protein, like maybe not even that much, just because you know what, this money that I have has to go into my gas tank. I can't eat today. I got to go wrestle. I'll eat when I get back home tomorrow, or something like that. And so you know, I forgot where I was taking all that. Did I go off on a tangent? I do that sometimes.
You're good. I guess to follow up that, do you think your dedication and the lengths you're willing to go, do you think that sets you apart from some others?
Some others, I will say some. But because of this level of dedication, it attracts likeness. And so I've been able to surround myself with other wrestlers, other performers in this industry that are doing the exact same thing. And so I try to keep myself, you surround yourself with people you want to be like. And so I try to surround myself around the people that are going to put that same effort into me. I know a guy that just for Wrestle Revolver, he drove from Davenport, Iowa to Dayton, Ohio, and then did setup, and then he stayed for the show, and then did teardown, and then he drove back 7 hour drive. This guy drive 14 hours in one day
Just
just
to
so he can
tear,
show face at Wrestle Revolver. And that's the kind of people I want to surround myself with. That's the kind of effort that it takes to make it.
and I'd like to say those are the kind of guys that I want to hear about on the podcast because those are the guys that'll make it.
Yeah,
Much
I
like
agree.
yourself. The guys that put in that hard earned work, not taking anything away from the guys that get, I don't want to say lucky, but get caught like early. But those guys that really grinded and really learned and really
Yeah,
established themselves are probably the guys that will make it the furthest.
yeah, and I'm also one of those guys that have gotten lucky. You know what I mean? I know that most of my bookings happened last year because of the way I look. Like I know that the promoters made that clear. So it's like I understand. I think what separates me from somebody else who just looks good so you get to get in the ring is that the my appearance got me in the door. My work ethic and result of what I do in the ring gets to keep me at the promotion, if that makes sense. So while I recognize that I have been I will say that probably handed some things that other people have had to work a lot harder for. It's because I put 16 years into my body,
Yeah.
so it's not like I didn't earn that either. But on the other hand, once I got handed the ball, I said, "Hey, I can keep it," and now I'm being trusted with it.
Which makes a ton of sense. And I'm sure a lot of people, like, I'll put it this way, I'm sure it hasn't lost you any respect because you've still earned it. You still put in that effort, maybe not in the ring, but you spent 16 years, like you said, building your body. So I'm
I
sure
hope
it's
so.
taken in consideration.
Yeah, everyone, I said it on every podcast I've been on. The pro wrestling community has embraced me with open arms. Every single person. I don't think I've had like a negative face to face interaction yet. I've heard some rumblings, right, when I'm not around, but who doesn't? So
That's
it's
how it
one of
works.
those things. Yeah, who cares? But other than that, everyone has really supported me and helped me, and I've tried to do the same for them. It's harder for me to help somebody when I'm the one on the come up, but nonetheless, like I hope that I can return that favor even better when it does happen, because of just how well I've been treated in the community.
Definitely. Um, with those things said, I will follow that up um, with my final question. You have a plethora of life experience, and you may be new to the wrestling scene, but in life you've got a lot of experience. Is there any advice you'd give to somebody else trying to get into this industry, no matter age or size or anything?
It's the work ethic. It's the work ethic. It's the be willing to do what it takes, and what it takes is a lot more than you're going to be used to doing. The only reason why I'm kind of adjusted to it is because I did what it takes to become a world champion in another sport. And so that made it a little easier for me because this is the second time around that I'm having to grind like this. But if you're trying to get into pro wrestling, um, know that in the beginning there's not going to be money. There's not going to be a lot of time for anything else if you take this seriously. There's going to be a lot of lack of sleep, and you better have either a vehicle that you can rely on with a buddy, or a vehicle you can rely on with yourself, because there's a whole lot of driving and not a lot of people. Everyone's doing it, so no one's going to hear about your efforts and say like, "Oh man, that's tough." Well, we all know it's tough. We're all doing it. So
Yeah.
be prepared. Just be prepared. Have that mental maturity to know to keep your head down and push hard.
Okay. Russ, this was a great time. I really do appreciate you taking your time out of your schedule to come on here. Um, maybe on the tail end of 2025, we can get you back on here, get an update.
Sure, just reach out. Yeah, reach out. Just like me starting out. That's why I haven't said no to a single podcast. You're just trying to make it like I am in a different industry, and I don't want to be one of those guys that's in the way. I'd rather get on here, and if I can get you 2 views, 3 views, whatever, more than you're used to, or just in general, I'm happy to help. So anytime you want me on, man.
Sounds good. I will leave this off with, I'll see you later then.
Yes, sir. See you then.